I'm Cole from Sandshark Labs, and this is the release of my blaster Final Condition, a high-powered 3D printed flywheel double-barrel shell-ejecting shotgun that uses full-length darts, half-length darts, and 50 caliber foam balls. This blaster has a very sci-fi style and was heavily inspired by Titanfall, Apex, Destiny, and Cyberpunk. Starting out on the front of the shortest length option for the barrels, these are proprietary barrels and they cannot be interchanged out with whatever barrel that you want. And while there's no end-strike barrel lug, I do offer you 2 additional options for barrel length if you want to change the style around. The first being these medium length barrels, and the second being these extra long barrels, which come with 2 tack rails on the bottom and a sling. Note that these barrels actually hurt your performance. They cut off your range a little bit and choke your spread, but that's the sacrifice we have to make sometimes for style points and tactics. To install an extended barrel, you just need to take off these 5 screws that hold these 2 front plates on and replace these front plates with the extended barrel itself. Moving back on the blaster, we have a pump grip, which is how you actually operate the blaster. So to prime and open the breech, you pull back on the pump like this. And as you can see, 2 shells just ejected out of the blaster when I did that. And if you're wondering, why do I have to prime my flywheel blaster anyway? It's because I designed the blaster to have 2 independent bolts and catches run by elastic cords. This gives a really satisfying pump and a really clicky trigger feel. The pump also has a Picatinny rail underneath so you can put any foregrip that you want on. Above the pump grip, we have 2 rails on either side of the blaster, which you can put on basically like whatever you want. But if you don't want rails, you can always decorate them with these decorative little side pieces. Right behind the rails are the motors. This blaster uses 4 out-of-dart Kraken motors to power it, 2 for each flywheel and 2 on each side of the blaster. I've tried Loki motors in this blaster too, and while they offered a small performance bonus, it's not really that crazy. In the future, I will experiment with more motors in this blaster and see what the performances that we can get from it. Behind the motors, we have the chamber, which is where we load the blaster with the shells. Again, to access the chamber, you have to also prime the blaster with the pump. This lifts up the back end of your barrels and exposes the loading ports in the chamber. Once you've primed the blaster and opened the chamber, you can load each of your 2 shells into the respective slots. When you load your shells, you have to push them in far enough until you hear them click. When you hear this click, they are actually locked into the blaster and do not fall out, even when you try to shake them out. If you do want to get the shell out after you put it in the chamber, you either have to fire the blaster or press the button that's underneath the barrel where the shell is in the chamber. This manually ejects the shell out. This blaster was also designed to be safely dry fired if you printed it and built it correctly. So if you wanted to run around your house all day with empty shells and just dry fire it and eject them everywhere, you totally can. This chamber was designed to have independent shell ejection, which means that if you were to only fire 1 shell, the chamber only ejects the 1 shell that you used. So if I fire the left shell and then open the chamber, only the left shell ejects out. Now if I were to fire the right shell and open the chamber, you would do that with no problem. And this system only ejects shells once the trigger is pulled. So if you wanted to open the chamber with shells that you haven't used yet, they won't go flying out. Moving back from the chamber, we have a grip and 3 triggers. The frontmost trigger operates the left barrel. The trigger right behind it operates the right barrel, and this 3rd trigger underneath is your rev trigger, which revs your flywheels. Note that if you actually want to fire the blaster with ammo in it, you need to have a battery in and you need to pull the rev trigger before you pull any one of these primary triggers, much like many other flywheelers that we're used to today. Behind and above the triggers, we have the safety switch. This switch goes between 3 positions: full safe, in which the triggers are locked and cannot be pulled; a middle position, which allows the triggers to be pulled, but the front one can only go halfway and stopping before it goes into the 2nd trigger; and the 3rd position, which allows the front trigger to swing fully into the 2nd, allowing you to double shot if you wanted. Something else to note about the safety is that you cannot prime the blaster when it is in safe position. The catches get blocked off and then they don't actually catch the bolts. So if you wanted to prime the blaster, you have to be in one of the 2 fire positions in order to successfully pull the blaster's pump back fully. In the back of the blaster, we have our battery housing, in which I offer 2 options for you. The first is this compact handlebar, and the second is a full stock option. To actually get to the battery compartment for both of these options, you need to unthread the thumb screw and then pull the battery cover off. This exposes where your actual battery rests and where your fuse housing is located. This blaster has 15 amp mini blade fuses, which are used to protect the circuitry of the blaster in case you were to jam or have a short or something. And trust me, replacing one little fuse is a lot easier than replacing all 4 of your motors. This blaster can either use a 2S or a 3S LiPo. But with the 3S LiPo, I was able to achieve ranges of over 100 feet angled, and with the 2S LiPo, I was able to achieve ranges of over 70 feet angled. Unfortunately, I do not have a working chronograph to test the muzzle velocity of it. There are also a few accessories for this blaster, but the only one I'll go over is a shell holder, which allows you to hold 2 additional shells on your blaster, and then these can be easily taken off or popped back into place. Behind the safety is an on-off switch, which, you guessed it, will power the blaster on and off. So again, operating the blaster, pull the pump back, open the chamber, load in your 2 shells, make sure the blaster is on and the safety is in a firing position, hit the rev trigger to rev the blaster, and then pull either one of these main triggers. And then when you're out, pull the pump back again. Now I'll show you the blaster firing. Files for this blaster are available on my Etsy along with hardware kits, which I will try to roll out as fast as possible and get restocked as fast as possible. There will be a link down below to my Etsy page along with an information sheet and a link to the build guide. Also, please note that this is a very involved build which requires over 70 printed parts to complete and some soldering. So if you are very new to the hobby, maybe wait to do this one until you're a little more inclined with the modding space. Other than that, that's it for me in this blaster. I really hope you enjoyed building and using it. Thank you for watching.